You got the message. I've been an actor all of my life. In fact, I have no conscious memory of ever not being an actor. But while acting is what I do for a living, activism is what I do to stay alive. And I am often asked how I managed to unite the two, and the answer is quite simple. I don't have a clue, because it was far less a conscious effort than it was a natural progression. Of course, if you grew up in a poor, large immigrant family, chances are you're either Irish Catholic or Hispanic, and I was lucky enough to be both, so I had a head start when it came to social justice activism. Both of my parents were immigrants. My father was Francisco Estevez, or as they say in Spain, Estevez. He was born in northern Spain near a little village called Vigo on July 2nd, 1898, the very day that the United States declared war on Spain. My mother was Mary Ann Phelan. She was born May 22nd, 1903, in a tiny village at the center of the Irish Republic, Borrisacane, County Tipperary. They immigrated separately to the United States, of course, but they met in Dayton, Ohio, and were married in 1927. They had 12 pregnancies. 10 survived, 9 boys and 1 girl. I was their 7th son. My real name is Ramon. I stayed in Dayton until I finished high school, and then I decided to go to New York and pursue a career in the theater. John Kennedy was in the White House, and Pope John XXIII was in the Vatican. We held our breath during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and we were lifted up by Martin Luther King's dream as civil rights, Vietnam, came into the national consciousness. Then suddenly we lost John Kennedy, and we still don't know how or why, but it seemed the worst of the 60s was yet to come. 1968 started with the Tet Offensive in Vietnam and ended with the return of Richard Nixon. In between, we lost both Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy, and we lost them just 8 weeks apart. We backed out of the 60s, still broken, but clutching the absolute certainty that lost causes were still the only causes worth fighting for, and that nonviolence was the only weapon to use to fight with. Each time someone stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and injustice. Those words were spoken at Cape Town, South Africa, at the university there in 1966 by Robert Francis Kennedy. They are enshrined on his memorial at Arlington National Cemetery as well, and they have been a powerful source of inspiration for my generation ever since. The more the world changes, the more it remains the same, I believe, because the 3 most important needs of every human being on earth are not food, clothing, and shelter as much as the need for freedom, justice, and healing. It is the gross inequality of food, clothing, and shelter that divides us, and the absolute necessity for freedom, justice, and healing that unites us. Clearly, we need a far more realistic understanding of who we are and why we're here in order to have an honest relationship with each other. Consider the following, please, from Earth as a Village by Philip M. Haster, Stanford School of Medicine. If we could shrink the Earth's population of over 6.5 billion people down to a single village consisting of 100 people, with all the existing ratios the same, it would look something like this. There would be 57 Asians, 8 Europeans, 21 Africans, and 14 people from the Western Hemisphere. There would be 52 women and 48 men. There would be 70 non-whites and 30 whites. There would be 70 non-Christians and 30 Christians. There would be no doctor, no nurse, no dentist, no hospital or clinic, and no school. There would be no safe drinking water. There would be no common language. There would be no electricity and no paved roads. There would be 70 people unable to read or write. There would be 50 people suffering from malnutrition. There would be one person near death and one person near birth. The entire food supply for the village would depend entirely on outside sources. 6 people in that village would possess 59% of the entire world's wealth, and all 6 would be U.S. citizens. There would be one college graduate, one TV, one computer, and the average person in that village would be a 13-year-old Chinese girl. Whether we choose to acknowledge it or not, we are all responsible for each other and the world, which is exactly the way it is, because consciously or unconsciously we have made it so. And while none of us made any of the rules that govern the universe, we do make all the rules that govern our own hearts. And we are all beneficiaries of those many heroic strangers who have gone before us over the centuries, who assure us that the world is still a wonderful and safe place despite our fears. And we're not asked to do great things. We're asked to do all things with great care. Such an ideal is rare in a culture of so many compromised values and so much cynicism, a culture that all too often knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. And yet there remains a very real and mysterious yearning deep within every human heart that compels us to reach outside of ourselves and help others for our own sake. This yearning is a true manifestation of our true selves. And it can lead to the very first small conscious acts of personal courage, which can bring rejection from the crowd and satisfaction from the heart. But this yearning can also be very costly as well. If it were not so, we'd be left to question its value. And this above all, one heart with courage is a majority. Over the entire history of the world, every truth started as a blasphemy, and no one has ever made a contribution of any real worth without self-sacrifice, personal sufferings, and sometimes even death. The Irish tell a story of a man who came to the gates of heaven and asked to be let in. St. Peter said, "Of course, just show us your scars." The man said, "I have no scars." St. Peter says, "What a pity. Was there nothing worth fighting for?" My fondest wish for each and every one of you young people here today is that you will find something in your life worth fighting for, because when you do, you will have discovered a way to unite the will of the Spirit to the work of the flesh, and all of humanity will have discovered fire for the second time. It is my profound wish that the light from that fire will illuminate your path to that place where the heart is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depths of truth and tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sands of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. Let us all awake. Thank you.